My mother-in-law looked me dead in the eye and said, "You don't deserve to be part of this family. You're just here to pay the bills." She didn't know I'd already spoken to a lawyer that morning. She didn't know the deed was already changed. She didn't know that in exactly 6 weeks, she'd be the one begging me for help. This is the story of how marrying into the wrong family almost destroyed me, and how I made sure they paid for every single second of it. If you've ever been disrespected by people who were supposed to love you, if you've ever bitten your tongue while someone walked all over you, this story is for you. Stick around, because by the end of this video, you're going to feel that same rush of justice I felt the day everything finally came crashing down on them. Hit subscribe, tap that like button, and let's get into it. My name doesn't matter for this story. Call me Daniel. 3 years ago, I married a woman named Claire. I want to be clear about something before I go further. Claire wasn't the villain here. She was caught in the middle of something poisonous, something that had existed long before I ever showed up. The villain was her family, specifically her mother, Linda, and her older brother, Marcus. When I met Claire, she was warm, funny, fiercely independent. She had a job she loved as a graphic designer, a small apartment she was proud of, and a quiet kind of strength that made me fall for her almost instantly. What I didn't understand yet was that her independence was a wall she'd built brick by brick, year after year, against a family that had spent her whole life telling her she wasn't enough. I found out the truth slowly, the way you find out a house has termites, not all at once, but piece by piece, until one day you realize the whole structure is rotting from the inside. Linda was the kind of mother who measured love in dollar signs. She didn't ask how Claire was doing emotionally. She asked what Claire could do for her financially. Marcus, the golden child, had never held a job longer than 8 months, yet somehow always had a new truck, new gadgets, new excuses, and Linda funded all of it, using money that, as I'd later discover, often came from guilt-tripping Claire. When Claire and I got married, something shifted. Linda saw me, a software engineer with a stable income and decent savings, and her eyes lit up like she'd found a new vein of gold to mine. It started small. "Could you help with Marcus's car payment just this once?" Then it became, "We're behind on the mortgage, and family helps family, right?" Every refusal was met with guilt, tears, accusations that I was tearing the family apart, or that I didn't understand sacrifice. I want you to picture this, sitting at a dinner table, fork frozen halfway to your mouth, listening to your mother-in-law explain, calmly, like she was discussing the weather, why you owed her son a truck payment. My jaw would tighten, my stomach would twist into a hard, cold knot. I'd glance at Claire, hoping she'd say something, but she'd just stare at her plate, shoulders curled inward, the way a person shrinks when they've been conditioned their whole life to expect punishment for pushing back. Over 2 years, favors turned into expectations. I covered a roof repair on Linda's house, $4,000. I bailed out Marcus from a financial mess with a failed business, $7,500. Each time I was promised it was the last time. Each time, it wasn't. Then came the real betrayal. Claire and I were saving for a down payment on our first home. 18 months of cutting back, skipping vacations, eating in instead of out. We had $42,000 sitting in a joint savings account, close enough to our goal that we'd started touring houses on weekends, already imagining furniture and rooms that didn't belong to us yet. One Tuesday evening, I logged into our bank account to double-check a transfer. My hands actually went cold when I saw the balance. $42,000 had become $6,200. I called Claire into the room, my voice shaking in a way I barely recognized. "Where's our savings?" She looked confused, then horrified, scrolling through the transaction history with me. A wire transfer, $35,000, sent to an account under Linda's name. Claire's hands were trembling as she dialed her mother. I sat there, jaw clenched so tight it ached, listening to one side of a conversation that would change everything. "Mom, where is our money?" A pause. "Marcus needed it for what?" "Mom, that wasn't your money to take." Linda's voice came through the speaker, sharp and entitled. "You're married now, Claire. His money is your money, and your money is family money. Marcus needed help with a business opportunity. We were going to tell you eventually." I felt something inside me go very, very still. Not rage, not yet. Something colder than rage, something calculated. Turning point.
That night, I didn't sleep. I lay in the dark, staring at the ceiling, replaying every dinner, every favor, every guilt trip, and every time I'd swallowed my anger to keep the peace. I thought about the down payment that no longer existed. I thought about Linda's voice on speakerphone, so casual, so certain that she had done nothing wrong. Somewhere around 3 a.m., the fog of shock burned away, and what was left was clarity. I wasn't going to yell. I wasn't going to beg for the money back. I was going to make sure that Linda and Marcus never had access to another cent of mine ever again, and that they'd lose far more than $35,000 in the process. The next morning, I called the financial attorney I knew through work. I explained everything: the years of loans that were never repaid, the missing $35,000, the joint account Linda had somehow gained access to through a forwarded bank verification email Claire had unknowingly sent months earlier during a helpful family tech support session. It turned out that wasn't just a betrayal, it was potentially fraud. Revenge planning in execution. Here's where I want you to lean in, because this is the part where everything changes. Step 1, I opened a new, private account that Linda had no access to, and Claire and I began rebuilding, quietly, deliberately, without telling anyone in her family a single detail about our finances ever again. Step 2, my attorney helped us file a formal demand letter for repayment of the $35,000, citing unauthorized access to financial accounts. Linda had 30 days to respond. Step 3, and this is the part that still gives me chills, I discovered that Linda's house, the one that I'd quietly paid $4,000 to repair 2 years ago, had an outstanding second mortgage she'd taken out without telling anyone, using Marcus's business as collateral. The business had failed. The bank was already circling. I didn't cause that collapse. I just stopped catching her every time she fell. For weeks, Linda called. She left voicemails ranging from sugary sweet to venomous. Family helps family, Daniel. Then silence once her own lawyer told her that pursuing the matter publicly would only expose the unauthorized wire transfer, a transfer that could be classified as financial fraud. Claire, to her credit, stood firmly behind me through all of it. For the first time in her life, she set a boundary with her mother and didn't apologize for it. The day everything came to a head, Linda showed up unannounced at our apartment. I remember the sound of her heels clicking against the hallway tile, sharp and fast, like she was marching into battle. Her face was flushed, makeup slightly smudged, the polished composure she always wore now cracked at the edges. "You're really gonna let a lawyer come after your own family?" she snapped the moment Claire opened the door. I stood up slowly from the couch. My pulse was steady. My voice, when it came, was calm, almost gentle, which seemed to unsettle her more than yelling ever could have. "Linda," I said, "you took $35,000 that didn't belong to you. You used my wife's information without her consent, and for 2 years you treated me like a bank account instead of a person. I'm not coming after family. I'm protecting mine." Her mouth opened, then closed. For the first time since I'd known her, Linda had nothing to say. 2 weeks later, the demand letter forced her hand, facing the threat of legal exposure and a bank already preparing to foreclose on her second mortgage. Linda was forced to liquidate Marcus's beloved truck and sell a piece of jewelry that had been promised to Claire for years, just to repay $20,000 of the $35,000. The rest my attorney structured into a binding repayment plan, enforced by law instead of guilt trips. Marcus, the golden child who'd never worked an honest job in his life, was suddenly forced to take a position at a warehouse to cover his own debts since the money well had finally dried up. The look on Linda's face when she signed that repayment agreement, pale, defeated, stripped of every ounce of entitlement she'd carried for years, was worth more to me than the money itself. For once, she wasn't taking, she was paying. Claire squeezed my hand under the table as the papers were signed. I felt something in my chest loosen for the first time in 2 years, a knot I hadn't even realized I'd been carrying. Looking back, I don't think Linda ever saw herself as a villain. People rarely do. She thought entitlement was love and guilt was family loyalty. But real love doesn't drain you dry and call it sacrifice. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can do isn't revenge for revenge's sake. It's simply refusing to keep absorbing someone else's bad decisions and letting consequences finally catch up to the people who earned them. If this story hit home for you, smash that like button right now. And I want to hear from you in the comments. Have you ever had to draw a hard line with family that took advantage of your kindness? Share your story below. And if you want more stories like this one, make sure you subscribe, because trust me, this isn't even close to the most satisfying revenge I've got for you.